What's going on, guys? Super Insane 18 here, and you guys absolutely killed it with the deck profile, getting us over 200 likes in less than 24 hours. So as promised, I am going to be bringing you guys the must-know combo tutorial. Today we have 6 must-know combos for the new updated Spright version, post-Terminal Revenge, so let's go ahead and jump on in. For combo number 1, we are going to do a quick recap of the combo I showed at the end of the deck profile, just in case you guys are seeing this before you see the deck profile video, and it's what you can do with a single copy of Swap Frog and 1 copy of Spright Blue. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off our turn by normal summoning out the Swap Frog, which will activate its effect, allowing us to send the Mirror Mage from our deck to the graveyard. Once the Mirror Mage is sent to graveyard, it activates its effect to search for a Ice Barrier spell. That is going to allow us to get the Freezing Chains, which we will immediately activate, and then it allows us to reborn out the Mirror Mage. Now that we have 2 level 2 Aquas on field, we can go ahead and just jump directly into our Totally Awesome. So now we're pretty much protected for the remainder of the turn. We can go ahead and special summon out our Blue using its effect, since we have a rank 2 Xyz on the field, and that is going to allow us to use its effect to search for a copy of Spright Jet. Spright Jet is going to be able to summon because we have level 2s, and that will then activate its effect to add us our copy of Double Cross. We're going to go ahead and set that aside because we don't need it right now, but we will be setting it before our turn ends. Taking the Blue and the Jet, we can go ahead and link those off into our copy of Spright Sprint and activate its on-summon effect to send a level 2 from the deck to the graveyard. That is going to send our copy of Nimble Angler. Nimble Angler, of course, when it's sent from hand or deck to graveyard, lets you summon 2 Nimbles from your deck. So we are going to do just that, summoning out 2 copies of Nimble Beaver. Here we have our 2 level 2s necessary to go ahead and overlay into our copy of Melfi of the Forest, and this will allow us to use the Melfi effect to detach 1, and then add any Melfi from our deck to our hand. In this case, it is going to be the Melfi Caddy. So here we can go ahead and set our Double Cross and then proceed to end phase. In the end phase, the Caddy will be able to activate, summoning itself out, and that is going to be our turn. So everything that you're seeing from this point on is happening during the opponent's turn, and that's very important to realize because I get a lot of comments, people asking why I'm doing things on my turn that I can't necessarily do. That's because I'm typically showing you what you have on your opponent's turn. So from here on, again, it is the opponent's turn. On our opponent's standby phase, we are going to go ahead and use the effect of Totally Awesome. This is going to allow us to summon a frog from our deck. We're going to go ahead and summon the Swap Frog, and now we are fully set up. When our opponent summons, we'll be able to use the Caddy, which is of course going to add us our copy of Penny, and because a Melfi was bounced, we even have a monster negate in the Melfi of the Forest. But once that resolves, we are able to go ahead and use the Penny to summon itself, and then immediately after that, use its effect to then synchro using itself and any Melfis in hand. That is of course going to get us our copy of Herald of the Arclight. Now, Herald of the Arclight is a pseudo-macro Cosmo-like effect. Any card sent from deck or hand to graveyard is banished instead, but it is also an Omni Negate on the Tribute, so you can go ahead and tribute it to Omni Negate, and this is why we get 3 Omni Negates, because Omni Negate number 1 will be Toad, Omni Negate number 2 will be Herald, and Omni Negate number 3 is whatever we reborn off the Double Cross, which is typically going to be the Toad. So let's just say that we use the Toad. This is going to go ahead, negate, and potentially set to our side of the field, but not just that, the Toad is then able to use its effect to recur a water monster from the grave to our hand. In this case, we're going to go ahead and add Beaver, giving us guaranteed follow-up for the next turn. What we can do here is immediately on the resolution, we can go ahead and use the Double Cross, targeting the Toad to reborn it back out, and now if we have the need for another negate, the Toad can actually send any Aqua, not just itself. So we're going to go ahead and use the Toad, sending our Swap Frog, leaving the Toad on field not just for our next turn, but also because it has 2200 attack, which isn't all that bad. And then the third Omni Negate is of course going to be our Herald, tributing it for a third Omni Negate, and you might think that we are done there, but we do have one more interruption in the Sprint. When our opponent summons, we can detach off of an Xyz, so we still have 1 material on the Melfi of the Forest, and that will bounce a monster to our opponent's hand, which is incredibly powerful. So off of just 2 cards, we ended with a 4-card hand since we recurred the Beaver, with guaranteed follow-up, 3 Omni Negates, a bounce, and a monster effect negate. For the second combo, we are going to show you the exact same start, albeit with a different end board. Now, this doesn't have as many Omni Negates, but maybe you're in a matchup where 3 Omni Negates isn't necessary and you'd rather have a varied amount of interruption. So we're going to go ahead and show you guys how it is done. It's going to start off exactly the same, normal summoning out the Swap Frog, and of course using its effect to send our Mirror Mage. Mirror Mage is going to activate when it hits the graveyard to add us our copy of Freezing Chains, which we can then activate activate to reborn out our Mirror Mage, and overlay the Mage and the Swap Frog for a very early Totally Awesome. So now with the Totally Awesome on field, again, we are just going to summon out the Spright Blue. Spright Blue is going to allow us to search for our Jet. We'll go ahead and special the Jet, which will allow us to search for our Double Cross, and again, set that aside until later. Here we have the Spright Blue and Jet linking off into our copy of Spright Sprint, which will activate its effect, of course sending the Angler to our graveyard, and then Angler is going to go ahead and summon out the Double Beaver. Now, here is where it differs. Instead of going into something like the Melfi, we are just going to go ahead and link off the Beavers into our copy of IP Masquerena. Then we can go ahead and set our Double Cross and pass to our opponent. Now, while this doesn't have the Melfi negate or the Omni negate when we go into the Herald, this is an incredible board in and of itself. So again, what you are seeing now is happening on the opponent's turn. During the standby, we're going to go ahead and use the Toad. This is, of course, going to allow us to summon out a Swap Frog from our deck. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and at any point use the Masquerena and the Swap Frog to go ahead and link off into a copy of SP Little Knight, allowing us to get a banish on summon as well as its once per turn effect of just banishing 2 face-up monsters on the field. But not just that, this is where it gets important because now we have 2 arrows pointing sideways, meaning that we have an ability to use our Spright Double Cross. So when we use our Totally Awesome, we are of course going to use the Graveyard effect to recur a Nimble Beaver for follow-up, but then here we can go ahead and activate the Double Cross, allowing us to reborn out our Toad for yet another negate, as well as still having the Little Knight on field. Now, if you wanted to, you also could have used the Bounce on Sprint before getting rid of the Toad, since it did have 1 Xyz material as well, so you still have the same number of interruptions. It's just a little bit more varied with the Little Knight, and the Little Knight can even keep the Toad protected, because what you can do is you can use the Little Knight to, if they're going to do something like get rid of the Toad without you being able to negate, like maybe they're just going to battle over it, you can go ahead and Little Knight to banish the Toad and whatever they plan on using to battle, albeit they do have to activate a monster effect for you to use the Little Knight, but again, it's just a little bit of a varied version of that first combo, giving you a different form of interruption rather than just stacking the field with Omni negates. Combo number 3 is going to showcase a unlikely scenario, but definitely one important to know, and that is if the only playable card in your hand is the Mirror Mage. Now, obviously Mirror Mage is a level 2, so if you have any other Spright monsters in your hand, you can go ahead and just special them after you normal summon the Mirror Mage, but we want to show you what happens if literally Mirror Mage is the only play, because it's actually still surprisingly strong, allowing you to end on multiple Omni negates, bounces, and other interruptions. So we are going to start things off by normal summoning out the Mirror Mage, and then we can actually just flat out link the Mirror Mage away into a copy of Salamangreat Almirage. Now, Almirage isn't something that I showcased in the deck profile, but it's definitely something that you should be playing. Shout out to the several people in the comment section that went and told me to do this. They were 100% correct, but that is going to allow you to use the effect of Mirror Mage because it was sent to graveyard to add us our copy of Freezing Chains. We will activate the Freezing Chains, allowing us to reborn the Mirror Mage, and would you look at that, we have a level 2 monster on field and something that we can link away. That is going to allow us to make our copy of Spright Sprint. Spright Sprint is going to activate, sending us our copy of Angler. Angler is going to activate in Graveyard, summoning out 2 copies of Nimble Beaver, and now we have the full Spright setup. We can go ahead and overlay both Beavers into a copy of Gigantic Spright, and then here we can use the effect of Gigantic Spright to summon out our copy of Spright Blue. Spright Blue will activate on summon to search us our copy of Spright Jet, which we can then also summon, and Spright Jet is going to allow us to add our copy of Spright Double Cross. Here we will take the Jet and the Blue, and we will overlay them into our copy of Melfi of the Forest. And of course, this is going to allow us to use the Melfi of the Forest, detaching 1 to add us our copy of Melfi Caddy. We can go ahead and set our Double Cross, proceed to our end phase, and using the effect of Caddy summon itself, and now we have a very similar setup to Combo 1. It will be 1 less Omni Negate, but off of just summoning Mirror Mage, this is absolutely incredible, because now when our opponent summons, we can go ahead and use the Caddy, which will allow us to add our copy of Penny. Again, this will activate the monster effect of the Melfi of the Forest, but then we can go ahead and use the Penny to summon out itself and synchro with the Caddy in hand into our copy of Herald of of the Arclight. Herald of the Arclight being an Omni Negate when it tributes, so we can go ahead and tribute it for Omni Negate number 1. Omni Negate number 2 is going to be activating the Double Cross to reborn the Herald, meaning that we have an additional Omni Negate as well, and we still have the bounce off of our Sprind, detaching off of the Melfi of the Forest. We are halfway through the video, so I want to give a little bit of a shameless self-plug here. We still have our popular Monster Metal Field Center available on InsaneTCG.com. Again, it is a limited run of just 100 copies, so we still have some left if you want to pick yours up. I would definitely go ahead and do that. The Diabellstar and Poplar are incredibly good monsters in this format, and even though it's not Spright related, this is still a beautiful field center. Very high quality, it feels nice, the art is good. Make sure you guys get yours now before they're out. Now for our 5th combo, we are going to show you 1-card combos galore. We've already done a few. We are going to show you the 1-card combo with Spright starter, so here is how it goes. We're actually going to start it off in our draw phase, and the reason we do that is to play around something like Droll Mockbird. We are going to go ahead and activate the Spright starter in draw. This is going to summon out our copy of Spright Blue, allowing Spright Blue to use its on summon search to add us our copy of Spright Jet. Now we can go ahead and proceed into standby phase and main phase. Our opponent was not able to Droll us because Droll is not usable in the draw phase, so we can go ahead and special summon out the Spright Jet. Spright Jet is going to go ahead and activate its effect, adding us our copy of Double Cross, and now if they Droll us, it doesn't matter because that was actually the last search of the turn. So what we can do here is using the Blue and the Jet, we are going to go ahead and link them off into our copy of Sprind, and it's going to be the exact same as the previous combos. The Sprind is going to go ahead and send us our Angler. Angler is of course going to go ahead and summon us our Double Beaver, and now that we have 2 level 2s on board, we can go ahead and use both Beavers. This is going to allow us to go into our copy of Gigantic Spright. Now here, because we've already gone through our Blue and our Jet, you could just go into something like Red and Carrot and end on a Negate, but we want to go even further thanks to the new support that Terminal Revenge gave us. We're going to go ahead and use the Gigantic Spright. This is going to summon us out a copy of Swap Frog. Back to the OG days of Spright when you would summon the Swap Frog and then just keep bouncing it with Ronin Totem and everything, but that's irrelevant because what we're going to do here is use the effect of Swap Frog. This is going to send us our copy of Mirror Mage, and of course Mirror Mage will allow us to add our copy of Freezing Chains yet again. We can go ahead and activate the Freezing Chains. This will allow us to reborn out our Mirror Mage, and again with 2 level 2 Aquas on board, we can go ahead and overlay them into our copy of Totally Awesome. Here what we will do now is go ahead and set our Spright Double Cross, and that is going to be our turn. Now on the opponent's turn, we do have double Omni Negate plus Bounce, but we could also summon out the Swap Frog. We don't have as many uses for it other than just tributing it so we get to keep our Toad, so I would probably still do it, but it's not like you have an IP or any of the other Spright monsters to tribute it off, but you do still have 4 cards in hand, so maybe you do have a little something that will allow you to better utilize that Swap Frog. But again, off of just the Spright starter, we end up with guaranteed follow-up because the Toad will recur the Beaver, we have double Omni Negate plus Bounce, and we still have the Gigantic Spright on field, and our opponent cannot clear it. That is just free advantage on the following turn. For the 6th and final combo, I wanted to jump back into the realm of 2-card combos and showcase what you can do if you opened up something like Swap Frog plus Angler, and this allows you to get an incredible board without ever having to even use your normal summon. So if you have something else you want to normal summon, like maybe a Spright Red or a Spright Carrot, to go ahead and protect your board from monster effects or spell traps respectively, you can go ahead and do that, but this is going to show you guys what we can set up. We are able to actually summon out the Swap Frog, special summon it by discarding a water monster from our hand. So now that we have the water monster being the Angler, we can activate the Angler and the Swap Frog effect, and I usually like to chain block the Angler here, so we'll go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. The Swap Frog is going to go ahead, of course, and send our Mirror Mage, and then the effect of the Angler is going to go ahead and summon out double Beavers. Here now the Mirror Mage will activate because it was set. This will allow us to get our Freezing Chains, which we will then be able to activate and reborn out our Mirror Mage. Now this is summon number 4. Summon number 5 is going to go ahead and become our Totally Awesome, meaning that we are again protected for the remainder of the turn, and then we can go ahead and use the 2 Beavers to summon out our copy of Gigantic Spright. Gigantic Spright will go ahead and activate its effect, detaching 1 to summon out our copy of Spright Blue. Spright Blue will then activate on summon to add us our copy of Jet. we can go ahead and special summon out our Jet. This will of course search us for our copy of Double Cross, and now here you have a plethora of places that you can take this. You could overlay these into the Melfi of the Forest, getting you another Omni Negate, but then the Double Cross won't have a link zone pointing to in order to resummon, so it will still be 2 Omni Negates, but then you'll have to use the Double Cross to attach to one of your XYZs as a form of interruption. Or what you can do for the maximum amount of interruptions is you can go ahead and take the Jet and the Blue and link them off into our copy of IP Masquerena. So now what IP Masquerena will do, we'll go ahead and set the copy of Double Cross, but now during our opponent's turn, when we use the Toad, we of course get the guaranteed follow-up in the Beaver. We go ahead and reborn the Toad to the IP Masquerena zone, and then the IP Masquerena zone will be able to link off into the, or not the zone, but the IP Masquerena will be able to link off into our Little Knight for 2 additional interruptions on top of the double Omni Negate, and again, we still have 3 cards in hand, 4 after we recur the Beaver, which again is guaranteed follow-up. And there you guys have it. That is going to do it for 6 must-know Spright combos post-Terminal Revenge, utilizing the new Mirror Mage that we got. It is incredible, and this deck just feels like there are endless possibilities. It was hard to narrow it down to just 6 combos to show you guys, but honestly, the combos just started getting a little repetitive because there are so many different variants to bridge into all of those same end boards that I already showed you. So you guys know the deal. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, comment, share with your friends. Don't forget to check out our popular Monster Metal Field Center, and as always, don't forget our channel sponsor Dueling Guard. Using code INSANE18, you can get 5% off your entire order, or the link in the description down below, which will apply that code automatically. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.